During my first year, I realized that law school had been nothing but a warm-up, and when it came time to apply legal knowledge to people with real problems, with real stakes, it was simultaneously thrilling, exhilarating, and terrifying. One of the realities that you learn in the first 5 years of practice is you don't get to some magical point where you can say, I've got this, and now I can coast. Because as you get better at solving legal problems, the problems get harder. And it seems to match your capacity to take them on. So you always have to come in ready to bring your all to it, and knowing that you can't say, okay, I did one of these before, now I know how to do this. Every case is different, every set of facts and the application of the law is ever changing. So you yourself have to change in line with that. I'd probably sleep more. When you're young, you tend to steal from your sleep because you think that if you just throw more time at something, you'll have a better outcome. But as I've gotten older and practiced, I've realized that you need that balance of time to mull things over, and part of that is actually looking after yourself and sleeping enough, quite interestingly. The thing that anybody who's done this for a long period of time learns is you have to take the attitude that it's a marathon and it's not a sprint. And so if you can find ways to make sure that you have a rhythm that allows for reflection, you will do better on the cases that you get. You've got to take your head out of the file. You've got to either go for a walk or just let it sit rather than just plunge into the books and stay with your head in the books and the file. You kind of have to find a balance, and that often leads you to more creative outcomes, and it certainly allows you to focus more on the client and not on how you're feeling about the potential ways that things can go wrong. So early on, I was representing someone on a criminal charge, and the Crown attorney went to town on my client, cross-examined them in a way that really went up against the lines of proper cross-examination, sort of crossing over into bad character stuff. And I watched this unfold, and I kind of watched my client take a few hits and get onto the ropes. And after the cross-examination, the Crown was walking by my side of the desk, and he said under his breath, "I can't believe you let me get away with that." And I realized, oh, okay, I see how it is. I had assumed that everybody would play within kind of the rules that I would play within, even though it's adversarial. I realized two things after that experience. First of all, I had to be the toughest on my client to prepare them before we went to court. And I needed to be more willing to jump up on my feet when somebody was playing close to the line. And so I didn't make that mistake again. The relationship between a solicitor and a client is built on trust. You see that word all the time. It's a confidential relationship. It's protected by law. These are really important conversations because in the life of someone who's charged with an offense or the life of a witness who might have to testify, your ability to serve them will flow from the strength of the bond between you during that period of time when you are acting for them. So the very first meeting, from the time of the first meeting, I started to imagine that the trial was already starting. I used to have this phrase that I would say to myself, that the trial starts now, because the relationship starts now, and the strength of that relationship will play out in how you go to court, what you do in court, what you do to negotiate, and in the trust behind the instructions you have to get from a client. It's a very powerful responsibility to have someone's liberty in your hands, and you have to be committed to making that a good relationship from the very beginning, and accept people as they are as they come into your office, because you see a whole range of people in this kind of practice. You need to have, first of all, the interest and the motivation, and I would put that ahead of the intelligence and the sort of written ability, the logic ability, the things that they test for when you take the LSAT. Knowing why you want to do this is pretty important from the very beginning. What values do you want to express in the way that you practice law? Because if you don't know why you're doing it, that will show up in the solicitor-client relationship. It will show up in the way you do your practice. And this is a demanding role. So if you're not committed to it, it's pretty tough to do it well. I will always maintain that this practice is a physical, it's actually a physical practice. And that's because when you are in an adversarial role, the reaction of the body is often to go into fight or flight. So you have to learn how to manage adrenaline, and because that's kind of the feature of your life. You know, someone could call you at any time, I've been arrested, I need advice. It can come at any time, day or night. You may have to go down to a police station, you may have to be in bail court the next morning. Somebody's liberty's on the line, people are frightened, people are emotional. So your ability to self-regulate is a physical requirement of the job. So tending to your physical health and the ability to balance that is a key part. At least 3 positions that I've held in the course of my career didn't exist when I graduated from law school. So don't worry too much about where you want to go. Focus more on building your capacity to think, to be flexible, to be curious, to be interested, and practice moving beyond the minutiae of the cases and the specifics. That can change overnight with one case. So suddenly the law is different from what you learned. If you dedicate yourself to being a lifelong learner and creating those skills,